Hello, this is Farrell Vincent, back with a Watcher of Realms video after a small break. Been focusing on school, and ultimately I got a little burnt out, so I decided to make some content. I've been wanting to go through all of the different heroes, their lore, backstory, and talk a little bit about them. I decided to go faction by faction, and I'm going to start with the Unnamable, mainly because they're the smallest, but also so we can set some ground rules. For this particular series of videos, what we're going to be focusing on is the actual story of the heroes that is very commonly not spoken about. I will warn you that as I'm reading some of these, I'm probably going to stumble here and there, and I'm doing these as close to one take as humanly possible, just because it's easier on everyone if I can do that. When it comes to various factions, though, I am going to try to speak to certain heroes in specific orders. So, what do I mean by that? Heroes like Kigiri, who is both a Watcher and a Nightmare unit. I'm probably going to try to talk about him during the Watcher section because there are less heroes in the Watchguard faction. And the Nightmare Council's pretty stacked, so in general, if they're in Nightmare and Esoteria, chances are good I'm probably going to break them away from those two. The main exception being, of course, the Supreme Arbiters. Most of them I'm going to talk about in this particular section just because there's so few of them. Same thing for Chaos Dominion. And I will try not to cover those heroes again on other factions. So, without further ado, let us speak to Ajax, the Dragon's Bane. This knight rules the sky with thunderous sword and immolating dragon. Foes beware his massive range. It's okay. His dragon could lay the fort low just for kicks. I'm glad he's on our side. Says Brokir the Frosthammer. A little weird, but I'm rolling with it. One quiet night on the frigid ramparts of Fort Blacklast, King Hars gazed across the tundra, as was his evening ritual. While unforgiving, his land typically afforded little in the way of surprises. This night would be an exception. Though barely perceptible against the snow, Hars made out a figure of a lone knight trudging determinedly toward the fort, clad in bone-white armor. The king might have overlooked him had it not been for one distinct feature. His blazing eyes appeared to contain lightning storms, cutting like lightning through the wasteland. Ajax, the Dragon's Bane, drew near. Adorned only with his ivory armor, the knight appeared immune to the cold. He spoke low, introducing himself before declaring what he believed to be his purpose at Fort Blacklast. Destiny awaited him nearby. The White Knight's arrival unsettled some, but the king was intrigued and made an offer, was made. In exchange for aid in defending the fort, Ajax would be granted lodgings to await his supposed destiny. He needn't wait long. Sorry, drink break. A few months after the knight's arrival, a tremendous roar shook the tundra itself from a bottomless crevice. A few months after the White Knight's arrival, a tremendous roar shook the tundra itself when from a bottomless crevice emerged a spectacularly terrifying white dragon. Though King Hars's men trembled at the sound, Ajax stood upon the parapets as if the dragon called and challenged him alone. In an instant, the self proclaimed destiny he foretold became evident. Mars gifted Ajax a magical, thunderous blade which matched his storm strewn eyes, and with that the White Knight set off into the snowdrifts. For weeks there was no sign of Ajax or the dragon, with many believing they'd fallen to each other by blade and talon. Then came a deafening wind that shook the foundations of the fort. High above hovered a black dragon and a rider in ebony clad armor, one with a thunderous sword and lightning in his eyes. To this day, none know for certain how Ajax tamed the white dragon or what magic transformed and bound them together. What is known is that King Hars and his warriors sleep soundly with the knowledge that the dragon's bane keeps a sentinel over the north. Like sentinels watch over the north. All in all, it's okay. I think the big thing that I don't like. So one quiet night on the frigid ramparts of Fort Blacklass, King Hars gazed across the tundra. Cut the as the evening ritual. Like that's, or as was his evening ritual. King Hars. You know what I mean? You could go one way or the other, but you're putting too many sentences together. That's all. Okay. Ymeret. I'm going to take a quick drink now. Entombed in glacial silence through the aeons, has risen, quickened to life by a caprice of destiny. This venerable titan harnesses the chilling sovereignty of winter and is immune to freeze, which is an in-game mechanic, but it sounds weird when you read it out loud like that. So, without further ado, a deep connection. Its lustrous scales still glint in the moonlight, a living fossil, perfectly preserved. What does it mean to be real once you have seen the impossible? Says some random white tower scholar. Buried in the tomes of Tia's history, one may find obscure legends of an ancient dragon race, the alleged progenitors of the great Scalekin people, now said to have been lost to the shadows of time. Through vestiges of these mythic beings remain scattered about Tia's unforgiving landscape. Little is known of their history, their origin, and their final fate. It's supposed to be though, but whatever. Ymeret remains one of the last fragments of this ancient kin, a primeval being incidentally frozen and trapped in the northern tundra for aeons, seemingly sealed in by some kind of powerful magical force. The White Tower scholars theorize that when the tides were unleashed upon the Tian continent, powerful magnetic waves were emitted which reverberated and resonated so violently that they stirred the great being from its hibernate state, ultimately liberating it from the depths of its frozen cell. The nature of Ymeret's origins remains a mystery, but tales abound of a winged figure who descended from the heavens during his unearthing. A woman, both ghastly and ethereal, a sight so stunning she was referred to as the Angel of Death. As witnesses believed, she came to deliver the fearsome being from the realm. To their great consternation, however, Honora, the Silver Seraphim, approached the limp dragon with her arms outstretched and embraced him, at first delicately, and then with deep passion. Through the infinite void, ether, through the infinite void of the ether, Honora had sensed the presence of a powerful entity, and descended from the skies to witness a miracle, to witness the rebirth of an ancient. Yet when their eyes met for the first time, the gravity of their connection was astounding. In that eternal moment, the world seemed to fall silent and remained completely still. It was said that their bond was so pure that the sky opened up and the northern snow turned a silvery, pearlescent, exploding brilliantly in tens of thousands of hues of color. In an instant, the past, the future, the ethereal and the mortal, the living and the dead, all came crashing together and thundered mightily. A powerful connection had been formed. Yet, from that day on, Ymeret has endlessly roamed the northern expanse in search of a world that no longer exists and a people who have seemingly all but vanished. Together with his soul companion, Honora, their search for answers has only brought them closer together, both in mind and in purpose. For perhaps with it, the combined strength of his people, Tia could be saved from the onslaught of the tides and the ancient order restored. Alas, the possibility of a deeper connection with the true nature of their world gives them their strength to persist and pursue. Okay, 2 seconds. Instant problem. Immune to freeze. And Primary will be incidentally frozen and trapped. Frozen. He's immune to freeze, but he's frozen. Good to know. I don't know. The interesting thing about this, first off, lots of run-on sentences. Again, it's like somebody wanted to describe everything in as few sentences as humanly possible. Like they made it a challenge. Like add some extra periods. You can change up some words. It will help. I don't think that this is terrible in what it's trying to convey at the very least. As usual, they give a lot of like titles to people, right? Like referred to as the Angel of Death. She's Honora the Silver Seraphim, which is what you'll see on her character screen, right? Through the infinite void of the ether. I want to know more about that. So at the very least, it did a good job of trying to convey some things, right? The sky opened up and the northern snow turned a silvery pearlescent, exploding brilliantly. Like that sentence feels weird. So I definitely want to get to know that thought process there because I feel like that could be better written. Sorry, I'm thinking through this. When it comes to, the idea that they're using, it's very tricky, right? Like silverly pearlescent. Those are two adjectives, right? Pearlescent meaning having a pearly luster or gloss, or having an iridescent pearl-like surface, giving a play of lustrous rainbow-like colors. Yeah. So, like, the northern snow turned a silvery pearlescent, and then it exploded brilliantly intense. Like, add it or the snow exploding brilliantly, like, because that's where this gets weird, right? Um, and again, that's just me being weird. Yet from that day on, or just from that day on. You don't need yet. Stuff like that, right? And this isn't me picking apart English too much. I mean, a little bit. It's more about like, what is it that you're trying to convey here? We have an ancient being who was locked inside of or entombed in a frozen prison underneath the ice. And the tides shook him awake. But couldn't they have like shaken this frozen prison and cracked it so that he could get out, maybe? That would be why he would be immune to being frozen, right? It's not that he was frozen, it's that things were frozen around him, if that makes sense. He being immune to the cold would not die in that, and so therefore he decided to sleep because he was waiting. The tides came, they broke him out, stuff like that. It would make way more sense. All in all, though, I like to say that the Unnamables are interesting, right? For Ajax, Ajax is the rider, not the dragon. The dragon is not as important as the rider, whereas Ymerit is the dragon, and he is the important one of that one. His lovely bride to be, Honora, we will talk about most likely with cultists. But just as a general idea, they do pair well together in the game. So I do like that they explain the connection, they explain the two of them. And so that's a good vibe. But with that, I'm going to call the Unnamables here. Next, we will be doing the Supreme Arbiters. So if you want to see those videos, please hit like and subscribe. Make sure to ring that notification bell, all the YouTube things. It really does help the channel out a lot. And I will see you on the next one.